My wife, Dahlia, female 28, and I, male 32, lost our apartment 2 months ago and moved in with Mom temporarily. Issues began to arise between Dahlia and Mom, and I had to ask my friend, Anthony, male 31, to let us move in till I had enough money to rent out. His wife was away visiting family, and he agreed, but even there some issues started to arise. FYI, Dahlia is very shy around Anthony. She grew up in a conservative home, so it's understandable, but sometimes it can be a bit much. I admit that. For example, she freaked out when she accidentally drank from his glass. She made a fuss when he passed by the guest room once when she was lying down and the door was open. Thankfully, Anthony was super understanding, and we were able to talk some of these issues out. Last night, Dahlia was passing the hall and noticed a framed picture of Anthony and his wife kissing hanging on the wall. She told me about it and said it made her feel uncomfortable. She asked if I could speak to Anthony about it, but he didn't take it well. He gave me a look when I talked to him and said that this was bonkers because, number one, his wife put it there, and number two, the picture held sentimental meaning to him and his wife, and argued that it wasn't some explicit picture of them, just a customary wedding kiss. We started arguing, and he said that it wasn't like it was hanging in the living room or a perfectly lit room. I asked him to be a little more considerate, because it's not like I asked him to remove it completely, just move it elsewhere, that Dahlia won't reach or keep it off the wall till we leave. He said he was sorry but still refused. I explained how Dahlia was feeling, but he said he was sorry again but would not move the picture. So we argued some more, and he said that it was his house, and that I was being pushy and kind of too comfortable with making such demands and being pushy still. This morning, Dahlia refused to come out of the room until the picture was moved. Anthony's refusing, which makes it worse. Now I feel like I'm getting stuck between a rock and a hard place. Yes, she might be overreacting, but I feel like this isn't such a big ask for Anthony to decline and turn down. If it were me, I'd go the extra mile to ensure my guests are comfortable. Anthony has been a friend of mine for 10 years. I wouldn't have asked to move in with him if I didn't have a strong bond with him. He constantly talks about all the things and situations I helped him out with, and we're considered brothers. So am I the idiot? If your wife is uncomfortable with images of someone kissing, wait until she finds out where babies come from. Your wife is being bonkers, and you're both horrible to a friend who has saved you from potential homelessness. You are the idiot, and so is your wife. You're in their home. Your friend is doing you a huge favor, and this is what he gets in return? Stop enabling and coddling her. Find somewhere else to live if you're going to behave like that, right? What would be uncomfortable about a stork putting your baby by the door and ringing the bell? I mean, the audacity. Dahlia needs help. OP and his wife should move out if they aren't going to appreciate their friend doing them a favor and putting a roof over their head. Anthony could have the picture painted on the entire living room wall. OP has no right to ask him to remove it. No wonder Mom had a problem with Dahlia. OP, you are a guest in their home because you're currently homeless. Get a grip. They're not guests. Guests are invited by the host to stay somewhere that is not their primary place of residence. People who ask if they can move in because they have nowhere else to go are beggars or charity cases, but not guests. Not shaming them for being in that situation, but it's a completely different thing from being a guest. Don't forget that she got upset because he walked past the open door where she was lying down. He can't even walk around his own home, just in case she's in her room with the door open. If I were you, I'd start packing because Anthony is about to throw you guys out. Let me guess, the issues you had staying with your mother had everything to do with your wife being ridiculous. This isn't about being from a conservative home. So what is going on here? Your wife seems to be systematically driving wedges between you and important people in your life. That's worth examining. If Dahlia has issues with everyone in her sphere, I promise she's the issue. This is a roller coaster. I've been with my husband for 6 years, married too. 3 years ago, I got pregnant and lost it. The pregnancy wasn't planned. I was on birth control, but it was still devastating because I've always wanted to be a mother. He said he always wanted one child as well. Now fast forward to a year ago. I'd been trying for a baby and going off my new birth control. He said he didn't think he was ready and wanted a test run first, and suggested getting a dog instead for the time being, so we would have some idea of what we were getting into. I never wanted pets, any pets, but he pushed the issue consistently and kept saying we needed to be sure we could handle it, and this was the closest thing. So he ended up getting his dog. I never bonded with her. Every time I tried to do much of anything, playing with her or bringing her outdoors, etc., he would jump in and do it instead. And it didn't take long for the dog to want absolutely nothing to do with me on any level. I've talked to him multiple times, but he doesn't see the big deal in it. He says that most dogs are one-man dogs anyway, which is normal. But the dog seriously wants nothing to do with me at all, and I've tried endlessly to involve myself, and nothing works. Anyways, about 2 weeks ago, it's been over a year since he got the dog, I brought it up again, and now my husband has completely changed his mind, saying we can't bring a baby into the house because his dog consumes too much of his time, and he'd feel left out if we brought a baby home. I questioned it a lot, like, you don't want to have a baby anymore because you don't want your dog to feel left out? And he said that I took it wrong, but there was no other way for me to take it. It's been sitting heavy on my mind since it happened, and unfortunately, I resent the dog to the point of not feeling like I could be there. It's not the dog's fault. It's my husband's fault. But I resent the dog regardless now because at this point, I feel like the dog is the reason I will not be a mother, and it destroys me. I always dream about having babies and want desperately to be a mom, and I feel like I'm being shafted because of a dog's feelings. So I packed a bag and booked a hotel for a week because I needed to work through what was happening in my head. I don't think I can be in that house anymore with him and his dog. I left when he was at work. I don't want him to convince me not to go when I know I need space. And I will not tell him where I am either, though he knows it's a hotel. He says that I'm acting immature and should have just talked with him like an adult versus acting like a child and leaving over the issue. Am I the idiot? Edit. I take care of the dog. I work from home. I do all the feedings, vet trips, and taking her out. Not the idiot, but correction. Your husband is why you will not be a mother. This is all on your husband. From what you typed, your husband is all about himself, his feelings, and his life. And up until recently, you've been a passenger who slept beside him. Ditch your manipulative husband. He didn't directly say he doesn't want a baby, even though he knows that you do. And he doesn't. Instead, he dragged out the issue and wasted your time. You're going to regret the time you spend with this man. He doesn't even take care of the dog. Do you want to have children with this kind of person? If you accept this for now, will you regret not being a mom later? Cut your losses. That's what I thought. He's making OP do all the work. This is the kind of parent he will be. You should consider this a blessing and rethink your marriage. The hotel is a good thing. However, you need to do some serious thinking because your husband doesn't want a baby. Not now, not ever. It's time for you to decide what's next for you. I was in a similar position to yours with my first husband. After 6 years of marriage, he decided he didn't want to have kids with me. The marriage wasn't good anyway, but this was my deal breaker. I divorced him. I've now been married for nearly 40 years to a loving husband and have 2 grown daughters and 4 grandchildren. I truly hope your dreams come true. My stepsister Amy and I, both teen females, are in the same grade at school, but we've always had different friends and classes, so I didn't spend much time with her until this year. My dad and her mom met at a school event a couple of years ago, and they got married this year due to an oops baby. Since her dad isn't in the picture, and my mom has been overseas for work for a few years, the living situation has gotten weird, and Amy and her mom haven't done much to make that any better. I could tell Amy hated the idea of our parents being together from the start, and I thought it was just that she didn't like all the changes. I didn't know until later that it was partly because of me. She comments about me being Miss Perfect and how everyone caters to me because I'm pretty. I'm average at best. I play sports so I stay in shape, but I'm nothing special, and I can't do makeup to save my life. Since we all moved in together, she has something snarky to say every time I do well at something, or go out with friends or anything. It's annoying, and the parents wouldn't do anything about it except just laugh it off. So I finally snapped at her about it, and said not even being pretty would make up for her ugly personality, so maybe she should work on herself instead of me. She screamed at me, and her mom got mad and told me that I was being cruel. My dad did stick up for me, but told me later in private that Amy's had a rough time socially, is depressed, and feels bad because I'm high performing at school, and people compare her to me now. He asked if I would try not to be as obvious about doing better than her, and if I could stay home more or include her in more stuff, so she feels better. I told him I was just living my life and would not do anything different just because she was jealous. I don't want to hang out with her because she's mean, and my friends don't deserve that. So the best I'm going to do is ignore her from now on, since she gets to throw shots. It sucks too much to take one back now and then. It's causing stress, and my stepmother says I'm a stuck-up brat. My dad has been trying to keep me home more, but I told him keeping me out of my clubs is going to look awesome for college scholarships, so he's frustrated. My mom says to just ignore them and do my thing, but everyone else thinks I'm an idiot. Not the idiot. Why is it that parental discipline only came into the picture when you snapped and clapped back at your stepsister instead of correcting her for bullying you? Your stepmother's a jerk, and your stepsister is likely just a product of her mother's parenting skills. Your dad trying to keep you home more and thus minimize your success is entirely out of line. She seems to be putting herself in the position of being a victim living in your shadow. This has nothing to do with you. She needs to join clubs and do things that interest her instead of picking at you. Remember, your mom is right. Just put sepsis and her mom on an information diet and suggest she gets therapy. You're too old to play happy families anyway. Disagree with mom. Just ignore never works with bullies. They see it as enabling. OP needs to stand up for herself and her whole support system from friends and teachers because her parents obviously would enable the stepbrat. OP, allowing her to bully you because she's depressed and jealous is not the answer. Never lower yourself just to make someone else feel better. I'm a 29 female in a relationship with a 31 male. We've been dating for almost 4 years, and this trip has been in the making for 2 years. I've been completely on board to go up until recently. The trip is to celebrate the birthday of my boyfriend's young niece. However, I'm backing out because the niece's mom will be 7 months pregnant at the time of this trip. I think her pregnancy will impede the fun that everyone has on the trip. I also worry about her health with all the walking. I've never been to Disney, and I want my first time to be amazing. I don't want to have to stop and rest every time the pregnant lady gets tired or needs a break. My boyfriend cannot guarantee me that we're going to go off and have our own fun on this trip. We took a trip a couple of months ago to a much smaller amusement park, and we occasionally had to stop and accommodate the pregnant lady. I'm not interested in doing that on this trip. My boyfriend thinks I'm being selfish. He says this trip is not about me. It's a family celebration to celebrate his niece. He doesn't think I'm being a supportive partner in this situation. I must add that this trip is already paid for by my boyfriend. I told him I would try to get my Disney tickets refunded and we could use the flight credits another time. He's still upset that I'm backing out. He's upset that I decided without talking to him first. He said that there was no compromise. He said that I'm turning down a fully paid for Disney trip because the trip may not go my way. Am I being selfish? Am I the idiot because I don't want my first time at Disney to be a potential flop? Yes, you are the idiot. You're a 29-year-old adult backing out of a paid-for family trip to celebrate a kid's birthday because it may not be amazing for your first visit. You could have chosen to put a positive spin on it. For example, you could have asked the birthday girl if you could partner with her since you've never been to Disney and embrace your inner kid while also taking some pressure off her pregnant mom. But that would require thinking of someone other than yourself. You aren't obligated to go anywhere you don't want to. But with that said, you agreed to go and things were paid for. And now you're backing out for the most selfish reasons possible. Spoiler alert, Disney isn't magical. There are screaming children everywhere, and gasp, pregnant women roaming wild. I was thinking the same thing. If you go on a Disney trip thinking everything will be perfect, you're in for a surprise. I'll say this, one good thing about her boyfriend, is that she's showing him exactly how she would be when it's time for a wedding. Major future bridezilla vibes. My ex recently lost his home due to not paying rent for 5 months and getting legally evicted. He's currently bouncing between couch surfing and sleeping in his car. My ex does have a steady job he's been at for several years. He's just insanely bad with money, and it's not unusual for him to be overdrawn 2 or 3 days after getting paid because he can't prioritize his bills over his wants and impulse buys. We have a twin son who lives with me and my husband around 80% or more of the time. Kiddo is in therapy, which I pay for out of pocket, along with all of his extracurriculars and everything else he needs or wants. Currently, I'm not receiving any child support, but we are supposed to go to court about it later this month. My ex is asking me to consent so he doesn't have to pay child support, but that keeps all the financial burden on my husband and me and alleviates my ex from taking any real responsibility for our son. Ex is the type to see kiddo when it's convenient for him, but never do more than the absolute minimum effort required. I feel our son deserves to be supported by his bio dad too, and we should let the state decide the amount of child support that's fair based on the facts and incomes. However, my ex is upset and saying there's no way he can afford both child support and to be able to get a new place to live, and I'm being unfair to him when I don't actually need his money, and we, husband and I, can easily cover kiddo's expenses. Am I the idiot for wanting to pursue child support no matter what? Not the idiot. Your ex-husband is homeless because he can't manage his money. He has a steady job, and you're right in allowing the courts to investigate and decide if he needs to pay child support and how much. The state will take the child support out of your ex's paycheck before he gets a chance to squander it. This isn't uncommon. Don't give it a second thought. Keep raising your little guy right and move on. If you sign off on him not paying support now, he'll never pay support, ever. So he's clearly comfortable with his living situation, and he'll just do it until the end to avoid using his money for anything other than his impulses. He's an adult and paying bills and child support, and rent is a very crucial part of being an adult. You're not obligated to bail him out because of his lack of control. He can sign away his parental rights if he doesn't want to pay child support.